Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Richard Graves from Richard Graves Group. Today I have a very special guest, a gentleman I've had on a couple times before, Mr. Ed Schofield from the Grumpy Old Dude podcast. If you have not followed his podcast, I suggest you do. I often catch it. It's always informative and entertaining. We're going to talk a bit about one of the podcasts he recently did. There was a young man and a young woman that were invited. Oddly, an interracial couple, a black woman and a white guy who are dating. However, they both believe in white supremacy to some degree, which is actually fascinating. It's lucky it's one of those shows I'm not on. But in any case, Ed handled them pretty well, or handled the gentleman pretty well. The young lady didn't come on that particular day. However, the man was making all kinds of assertions that black people were more aggressive by genetics. And as Ed pressed him on different, questions or facts to try to get the guy to bring up some type of at least peer-reviewed articles, the guy had nothing. But I'll let Ed tell you guys more about that. Ed is a former white supremacist. He has talked about that often on the show. Recently he did an ancestry, or I think 23andMe or ancestry.com check for his ancestry. So I'll let Ed talk to you guys about all that. And we're going to discuss race, ethnicity, and racism in American society a bit. So without further ado, Mr. Ed Schofield, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good, but I do have to correct you on something.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I'm not from the grumpy old dude. I am the grumpy old dude.
Corrected. He is the grumpy old dude,
And it's people like this kid you were just talking about that make me so grumpy.
He made me grumpy that day, so.
Come on, man. This is 2021. You're still trying to push eugenics from the 1920s. Like, this has been debunked for 100 years. It's not that hard, man. It really can't be that hard.
So Ed, tell us how you came across this young man and this young woman, and and how you came across them first, and then what happened on your last show with them.
All right. So originally, somebody else, another YouTube creator, man, I always forget Kevin's channel. Kevin, he goes by Kevin Chaos. His real name is Kevin Lentini. On Twitter, he is Kevin Chaos. Kevin does have a YouTube channel. I think it's The Trusty Ape. It's either that or The Aptivist. One of those two. I can't remember which channel is his offhand. But he shared something on Twitter. This, white lady talking about, why do black people get 50% of the abortions in America, and why do they commit so much more crime than white people? So Kevin tagged me and said, what are your thoughts on this? And my first comment was, I'm not debating this crap right now. I'm not in the mood for this racist rhetoric. I'm done with this. Like, Trump's out of the White House. These people need to move on. And then I get a response from this young black girl, Deidre, saying, well, it is a valid question. Why can't you answer it? First of all, I don't feel like answering it. So I didn't say I couldn't answer it. I said I don't freaking feel like it. What part don't you understand? And this girl kept pushing and pushing and pushing until she drugged me into this debate she wanted to have, saying, and I quote, black people are genetically more violent than white people. And I said, show me your source. Give me your evidence. And she started trying to present me with some evidence. And I'm like, that's not what this article says. You're cherry picking. Just because one part of this says that black people have the MAOA, 2 variant, that doesn't mean anything. Anybody can have that variant. Well, they said it's more prevalent in African Americans. Okay, but your initial claim was black people, not African Americans. And then, of course, she tried to move the goalposts. Well, I'm not saying that it's just, African Americans, or, I'm not saying it's all black people. And I'm not saying that it's just this gene. That was your initial claim, though. No, my initial claim was black people are genetically more violent than white people. Right. That's your initial claim. Am I confused here? Because I just repeated back to you what you said, and you told me that's not what you said. And these two, then she brought in her boyfriend, Christopher. And I'm like, see, why did you have to get back up? I thought we were having a conversation. This wasn't an actual debate. It was a conversation. Now you got to go get back up because you want this to be a debate that I said I'm not willing to have. So days went by, and my wife is asking me, why do you keep going back and forth with these two? And I'm like, because they're so disingenuous. It's not even funny. Like, these kids have no comprehension of what they're pushing. And I'm trying to tell them, this is white supremacist doctrine that I used to preach back in the day. And I'm telling you, it's wrong. There's no basis for this. It's been debunked. Well, prove to me it's been debunked. You're the one making the claim. You are making this claim, and I'm telling you, science does not back that up. Well, prove science doesn't back it up. Go read a book. Like, there's my evidence. Read a freaking book. I'm dumbfounded by this whole situation, that they want me to try and show them that the evidence they're giving me, they're trying to give me evidence. And I'm like, this article that you just gave me, if you read this correctly, says right here, your claim is false. That's not what they said.
Wow.
What more do you want me to do here? Because that's exactly what they're saying. No, I don't believe that. Well, that's a you problem. I don't know what else to tell you. The scientist in this article says you're wrong. That's not what they said. Do you not understand? Go get a dictionary. Go get a dictionary and tell me that's not what they said. Oh, no, you're just twisting that to fit your narrative. No, I'm not. I'm telling you what the science is saying. And you're telling me you don't believe it, but you want to call me a science denier. What?
Well, let me get some context. So I had a conversation with Christopher Guy on Twitter, a little bit of one. And you know how I get down. So I'm gonna ask you a question. And he had made a claim. Oh, I forgot the claim he made, but the claim was so ridiculous at face value. I said, I want you to read what you just said, and then I want you to understand why it makes no sense whatsoever. It literally was it was that faux intellectual speak. You say something you think sounds smart, but it really makes you look ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I just wrote him on it. And he's like, well, let's talk about God. And I'm like, dude, we're not even able to have a conversation about theism or atheism. I said, I would have to, based on what you wrote, it would take me 2 years of educating you for you to keep up with the discussion we're going to have. And I said, so I just, me, some of my friends have said, oh, you talk down to people. No, I talk down to certain people on purpose. I condescend to them on purpose. And generally it's someone who tries to come off all scholarly or whatnot. So I say, okay, I'll play your game. Let's play the scholar's game, and then I'll pretty much treat them at their own game, because a lot of times people know a few big words. They know how to regurgitate something they've heard from somebody else. And then I kind of just embarrass them, because at that point I'm not interested in having a conversation with you. I already know where you're coming from. I know what you're on. So I'm there to show you generally that you're not as smart as you think you are. And that it was very easy with him, because he was saying some of the most asinine things. And I think you did the same thing. You were a lot nicer than I would have been, Grumpy. I got to give it to you.
I tried to be.
Well, you
tried
were.
to be.
And now I want people to understand the irony of what the discussion was. You have a black woman, a young black female, arguing with an older white male, all right, who is a former white supremacist, trying to convince the former white supremacist the rhetoric that he knew verbatim that he found to be untrue. She's trying to, the black woman is trying to convince you it's true. That
Yeah.
is that is insane. You know, you can't write a story like that, you
Yeah.
know? So I saw part of the show that you had. Please tell us. I probably should have brought a clip because people aren't going to understand, aren't going to believe I should have had a clip. But tell us about this show. What I saw was he said a couple of statements that I found ridiculous. And oh, let me say it so I'm going to piss some people off that think I'm pretentious. Prima facie or prima facie. All right. I always say with Italian accent, so I'll say prima facie. You know, that being said, at face value, the things they said were he said were so ridiculous. I could see you holding it together. I'm like, Grumpy's good, because I would have went in. He goes and says that one, he makes the assertion that black people are genetically more violent than anyone else, and you pressed him on it, and he had nothing but anecdotal evidence. He had nothing, no scientific data, no genetic data, no peer review papers, nothing.
According to him, it takes a quick Google search that I'm still waiting for him to do. Like he said on my show, he was going to post a link, and I still haven't seen it. So it's obviously not a quick Google search because it's been a week.
Mm-hmm. And then he goes on to say that white people, I think he specified white men, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He said white men are genetically cowards.
Yes.
And I was like, I just didn't even know how to. And this is coming from a white guy. All right. So you have to understand this couple ought to be interesting to see in operation. But and you held it together for that.
as my wife's pointing out in the chat, but Chris is a super genius.
Really? Self-proclaimed.
Well, that's what he claims. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He claims to be a super genius. Now, I'm glad you brought up the part about him saying white men are genetically cowards.
Mm-hmm.
Because it got to a point on my channel where I'd just had enough of him, being disingenuous and completely idiotic. And I kicked him off my channel because I was not going to platform white supremacist rhetoric. He kept speaking over me, interrupting me, and just trying to get his point across, about how bad black people are. And I'm like, no, we're done now. Like I told you, you're not going to keep interrupting me. And I didn't bring you on here just to spout off a bunch of racist crap. I'm not having that on my channel. My channel is specifically to debunk the poison that you're trying to push. So I'm not going to let you come on my channel and just push that. It's not happening. So I kicked him off my live stream. Chris immediately jumped into my DMs on Twitter and started accusing me of being a coward. Now, that word, that's a trigger word for me. I come from an abusive background. My father he was a good man in a lot of ways, but he was an abusive alcoholic. And when he'd get really twisted up, he'd like to throw those words out there: coward, pansy, things like that. So I told Chris, hey, you really need to stop calling me that. That's really offensive. That triggers me. Don't call me that. And I'm not being a coward. I answered your question. You just don't want to accept my answer. That's not my problem. And he kept on going with whatever, coward. And I lost it. And I started dropping a you mother effer this, mother effer that. If I ever see you in person, I'll tell you what, send me your address. Let me know where to meet you somewhere, and I'll show you how genetically superior I am. And he responded with, I'm a super genius. I know better than to pick a fight with an N-word like you.
Now let's delve into him calling you the N-word. I think this was after you gave him some revelation about your genetic testing you did. So can you share with us, what, if you feel comfortable, your genetic testing, what it revealed and why he chose to call you the N-word because of this.
So I had informed this kid that my wife and I had taken DNA tests from myheritage.com. It was a 300 subscriber celebration for my channel. We decided to do some DNA tests. And my DNA test revealed that I'm almost a quarter West Asian, mainly from Iraq. And I have some, DNA from Turkey, places like that. So technically, if you go by the one drop rule, I'm not white. I'm mixed.
Well, he was going by it, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, technically I'm mixed. And not for nothing, but that DNA test result, that was great, because I got some comments from some of the white supremacists like, oh, we knew you weren't really white. And I'm like, well, if you knew I wasn't really white, why'd you let me join your group?
So, I've had a few conversations about race over the last few weeks, particularly actually facilitated by something that I wasn't really too interested about, the royal marriage between Meghan Markle and was it Prince Harry. And I've had discussions with people where I've been talking about race and ethnicity. Like you say, you're a mixed person. I've done my DNA testing, and I get basically 13% European. Mostly from Norway and Germany, a little bit from England, Ireland, and Scotland. And a lot of people who've done it have come to some odd conclusions. My stepfather found out he's like 10% Filipino, and he's from Mississippi. So he's like, I don't know where that came from, so, so we find out different things that we had no idea. And I tell people, I use Meghan Markle's son because, the royal family was concerned about how dark he was going to be. And I said, for all practical purposes, Meghan Markle's son is at least 75% European, at least. That's assuming that Meghan Markle herself her mother didn't have some European ancestry. And it's estimated the average African American has in between 12 to 18% European ancestry. So this kid is maybe 83%, European. And he is going to visibly look like a white person. Yeah. All right. Unless he tells you that I have a mother who was half black and a grandmother who was black. And the fact that the genetics don't matter. The ethnicity doesn't matter. The ethnicity, is probably pretty much English. That's pretty much going to be his ethnicity. But what people need to understand about race, whiteness and blackness are creations. They're creations that are based on phenotype. And phenotype is how we look, our skin color, eyes, lips, and all this stuff. And phenotype doesn't determine genetics. There are people in South Asia, all right, in the Pacific Islanders. There are people in certain islands that have a phenotype. They look just like West Africans, Bantu West Africans. However, genetically, they are more similar to Asians in the Southeast Asian region than they are genetically linked to West Africans. And it's those type of things, those type of facts make you realize the phenotypes are very superficial things. When we get to the actual genetics tells a whole different picture about a person. It tells your whole world history. And I'm not going to go deep into my ancestry, but, I'm a historian. So I did some digging for historical records and tracking my family tree. And, I was under the impression that, any of my European ancestry came from rapes, period. Rapes of slaves. This is what it's about. Oddly, I found out when I did my mother's mother, my mother's father, I did their line. And my respected grandparents there, they were all marriages. And I was like shocked. I saw the marriage licenses, the census information, and I was shocked because these were, in one case, one of the marriages was in 1840, and I'm thinking the world a certain way. As a young white girl, I think she was 14, my great grandmother on that side, I think she came as an indentured servant because saw how young she came, was still trying to piece that all together. And she married a African American man in Tennessee, in the area that became Tennessee in the 1840s. I'm like, how is that even possible? Or, one of my great grandfathers. This is where I get my relationship to Thor, because his mother was named Inga Thorson, and she married a Scot. She was Norwegian. She came over in the late 1700s, and they got married. She married to Scott, and they came over here. They had a son. They were Quakers, and then he married a black woman. And I'm like, I didn't know these things happen, because see, the narrative that we're taught is that people were, but what I've come to find, looking at the history prior to the Civil War, poor people generally got with poor people. That's how it generally worked. The white supremacy thing that was created, to push a politic more than anything else, is pretty much a Civil War creation. And I'm not going to go deep into deep into the history of it, but you see a certain thing change prior to the Civil War. Prior to the Civil War, black men and black people were viewed as basically gentle giants. They don't know much, they're kind-hearted, simple-minded folk. And black men, they're simple-minded, brutal, gentle beast, weren't a threat. We get to the Civil War where, basically 3% of the Southern population who owned slaves decides they need to get everybody else to fight for their right to keep them. All of a sudden, this is when the narratives of the black man being this animal monster chasing after white women comes out. And this is when we really see the birth of the modern version of what we know as white supremacy and white nationalism. So it's interesting when you look at your genetics and you find out that it isn't what you've been fed, So now, with you being partially West Asian, Iraqi, for example, that would be Arab, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have some Arab friends, and they tell me that they get called sand Nword. That's what they're considered. So by some people who feel that way. So you've been excluded from whiteness now. They take your card. Did they come? Cancel your memberships and everything.
I guess they took my card. Now, when this kid said this to me, I was like, all right, well, I got you now. Like, there's no doubt in my mind you're a racist, and we're done with this conversation. And I walked away. Told him I'm done. Like, there's no more need for you to try and talk to me or whatever. So I'm walking around the house, and I'm telling my wife what just happened. That this kid just called me the N-word. And I'm kind of, at the time, I was like, I can't believe this idiot just said that. Like, he's got a black girlfriend and everything else. And then I started thinking about it. Like, I just told him I'm mixed. And that's when he said that. And it hit me. It hit me hard. And for the first time in my life, I understood how hurtful that word is.
Wow. And let me give some context here. All right. This is, again, a former white supremacist, all right, who probably used the word, I'm assuming. And the fact is that when one little racist kid finds out after you tell him, not that he can visibly tell, after you tell him somewhere in your DNA is West Asian, Arab, and he felt immediately the thing to call you was the N-word.
Yep.
It's amazing. That just goes to show you the mindset. It's a sickness, because for all practical purposes, you like a white guy to me, right? But
I grew
your
up,
genetics tells a different story.
Yeah, I grew up thinking I was Irish and Italian. And come to find out, I'm more Asian than I am Italian. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm thankful in a way that this little ignorant scumbag called me that word. Because like I said, it brought me to a realization of how harmful and how hurtful that word is. And I never really truly thought about it. You know, I've said on my channel time and time again, you know, yeah, this is how I was in the past, and you know, I'm sorry for that, and I'm trying to make amends for it. But him telling me, him calling me this word as an attack, a personal attack on me based on what I told him about my ethnicity was definitely life altering, because it's now I'm at a point where it's not that I want to debunk these issues and whatever else. I want to try and find some way to reach out to every person, every single person, whether they were in prison with me or outside of prison, anybody that I ever hurt using that word. And I want to give them an apology. And I know that's never going to happen. I'm never going to be able to find all these people and, you know, stand there face to face, look them in the eye. But I just
Wow,
want
man.
everybody to know, even if I didn't know you in the past, I'm sorry.
That's powerful, man. And honestly, it had an emotional effect on you. And, you know, it's good that you understand that. You know, as an African American, you know, we use the word with each other sometimes. And of course, we claim we use it with an A and we don't mean it. I wish we would get out of the practice of using it. And I think it's become so commonplace with us
I
that.
do too, but it's not the same though.
Oh no, it's not the same, because when we talk to each other, we don't have that. Intention is everything. You know,
Yeah.
it's what a person intends. Like if I'm a black person, I say, "Hey, what's up, man?" Or, you know, we talk like that. We talk like that.
Yeah.
But I can be another black person. Like let's say if I'm Candace Owens or if I'm Alan West and I call a group of black boys the N-word, I mean something when I'm saying that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be. So in the times I've only been called that, where I heard the person say it a couple times, you know, in my life. When I was very little, you know, when I was 6, and the person called me that when I was playing with a bunch of white kids, and you know, the white parents came out and said, "Get away from that N-word," you know, and I'm like, and it was kind of like, what, you know, and then as I explained it to my grandfather, he explained me some things about what that meant, and it was hurtful. And then as an adult, I had it said to me twice, you know, and it was, you know, people in passing, you know, I'm not exactly Mike Tyson, but most people know I'm kind of not the person to try after they get to know me. So, but it was still hurtful, because it's a dehumanizing word. There's a way for them to say that you are inferior to me, you are beneath me, and I'm going to make you feel that way. You know.
Yeah. That's how it hit me. Like, this little scumbag, you know, using that as a weapon, you know, especially, you know, being a keyboard warrior about it. Like, you're not even man enough to try and face me and say it. Because you know damn well, if I was staring this kid down, he'd be shaking, like he'd be quivering.
Mm-hmm.
And
so I do have one question for you. You haven't been a white supremacist. Now, this kid obviously probably is not a member of any white supremacist organization. He's just a white supremacist by thought. How do you explain him being with a black woman? How does that work in their mind?
I'm going to put it this way. I'm not going to say he's a white supremacist.
Mm-hmm.
I make a clear, you know, deviation between a white supremacist, which is what I was, because I would spill blood, mine or somebody else's, for my cause.
Okay.
This kid, he's a racist. He just wants to push a narrative. He's not willing to go out and do battle and actually harm anybody. He's going to try and harm people by talking to them. You know.
Okay, I see.
You know
the difference. I see the distinction.
Yeah, I make that distinction. A white supremacist is somebody who's going to go to battle. They don't care
Mm-hmm.
if they have to, do time or whatever. They're going to tell everybody they're a prisoner of war. This kid, he's scared to go to jail. He's scared to actually step up and get his freaking hands dirty, or get punched in the face. He's a freaking coward. He's just a racist.
I believe. So this is a
Now,
racist person who believes in his superiority to black people.
yeah. Now, him
Okay.
having a black girlfriend, he's a dude. He may be attracted to black girls. That doesn't mean he's not a racist, because he'll look at a black man and be like, that's a violent animal.
Mm-hmm.
While he's sleeping with this girl, who's also black.
Fascinating. So I want to point this out because there's been a few people that have gotten upset with me when I talk about some people as being racist because, well, he's married to a black woman or he's married to an Asian woman. I'm like, or she's married to a black guy. And I'm like, that doesn't change anything.
No.
People can deal individually if they're racist with a person. But as far as how they see a group, they can still. I mean, I knew some black guys in the Nation of Islam who secretly had white wives that they couldn't bring nowhere.
Yep.
So it can happen.
Listen, one of my best friends grew up with the man, and we were still friends the whole time I was in state prison skinheads. The whole time I was a white supremacist, me and him still remained friends. I would not give up that bond with him.
He was a black person?
Yeah.
Wow.
And actually took beatings over that, took sanctions from the group that I was in just to be able to talk to him, until they finally got the hint that no matter how many times we take him in the shower and beat his ass, he's going to keep talking and no good. So might as well just let it go. He ain't going to quit talking to him.
Oh, that's fascinating. Wow, man. I'm sorry that that anybody, all right, has to deal with the emotional impact of that word.
Yeah.
And I know I don't talk about racism on an individual level that often. I usually talk about systemic or institutional or structural. But that individual racism, the individual, when someone says something like that to you, it definitely, there's an effect there. Words are powerful, regardless of what people may think. Very powerful.
Yeah. Words have
So
meaning.
I'm gathering that you are going to engage these people again at some time this week.
Yeah, hopefully Wednesday. I'm going to be debating this little. I'm going to be debating this kid. I'm trying to be nice here. I wanted to call him something else, but yeah, hopefully I'll be debating this kid Wednesday on Atheist Pastor Hereticals channel. My buddy Jay from the Nevermore Tavern, who's in the chat, picking on me about my damn cup. Hopefully he's going to be there moderating. Now, I know both Chris and Jay. I'm friends with them, but I'm going to assure everybody right now, they will be fair moderators. If I start getting out of control, they'll shut me down. Like, I have no doubt. And both of them know how aggressive I can get. So I'm counting on them to, pull the reins, keep me in check. Don't let me get too far out of hand.
I mean, I always say, well, Ed, you're better than me, but I have had some people that have said some off the wall things on my show, and that have said some things I completely disagree with, and I was actually quite shocked that they actually said them, and I actually, been able to maintain, because I want people to see the reality situation, see what we're really dealing with as far as mindset. I have to send a shout out to oh man, shoot, our people on the what's it the atheist station? Oh, where I met you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm YFMA.
YFN atheist. Your friendly neighborhood atheist.
Yes, over to your friendly neighborhood atheist, when they would invite me on their program, and I had to learn patience, and I had to learn how to not not condescend to people even when I'm not trying, because
Yeah.
sometimes people set themselves up for it. I'm explaining something. I don't think I'm just explaining something. They're feeling like, oh, he's full of himself. So when I went back and watched, I said, oh yeah, that was kind of raw right there. So I've learned to be a little less aggressive in that manner, in
Well,
talking to people.
it's because you're a super genius, Richard.
Oh God. Apparently I'm not, because I don't know that black people are, aggressive by genetics. So I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
obviously I'm not as smart as I thought I was. So
Yeah. Now, see, when I try and get them to pin that down as their claim, which they tell me that's the initial claim, verbatim, black people are genetically more violent than white people. And then I say, okay, well, none of this proves that. Everything you've sent me disproves that. Well, I'm not saying that it's just because of genetics. Then what are you saying? Because that's exactly what you first claimed.
right.
Well, no, there are other reasons for it. Then you agree with systemic racism. No, that's a myth. It doesn't exist. What?
I've talked to some people about that, both here and in the United Kingdom, about the idea of systemic racism. And it is funny that there are so many people committed to proving what is apparently true. To me, you don't even have to be a scholar to understand this. It's something that is clearly observable. I'm like you. And when people ask me, I'm saying, look, man, I'm not going to spend the next 30 minutes explaining to you how water makes things wet. You've had it poured on you before. You were wet. So you understand that this is a reality. But I noticed that on the right, the radical right particularly, there's a big pushback against the idea of systemic or institutional racism. There's a big pushback in talking about the racist history of our country, and particularly the Civil War. A whole new push for revising the history of the Civil War, and for trying to just, I don't know, to try to, for example, I remember on Bill O'Reilly's show, Michelle Obama had stated that she found it historically significant that she, as a descendant of the slaves, was living in the White House that was built by slaves, and they lost their damn minds.
Yeah.
The right lost their minds. It's like, I believe they have made this mythical history of America where they blank out the things that we may not be so proud of, to the point that there's a denial of things that should be obvious.
Well, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, don't you know that this country was built by Irish and Italians, and that's it? Nobody else. Come on, man. Seriously.
And that's the thing, man. They hold on to this mythology. The founding fathers are treated as people, as gods who had no faults to them. I remember I got into an argument with a historian years back about Thomas Jefferson. He had children with not only with one of his slaves, a black woman, but it was his wife's sister. That made it worse. It's his wife's half sister. And and the historical evidence pointed clearly to the fact that these people that were related to them were the descendants of Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
This was one of the more noted historians in the field, and he was debunking it. Like, no, it's not true. It's not true. It was a cousin of Thomas Jefferson. Then the DNA came out, genetics came out, and they proved he was wrong, and he never issued an apology for it. But the fact that he was so dogmatically attached to, and there's so many people that bought into this. Like, why can't we talk about? I think Thomas Jefferson is still a great man, an Enlightenment thinker. He just was flawed, like we all are, and it is what it is. I'm not saying anything he did was right. I'm saying that it doesn't change the fact of all the good that he did, or all the things he did to structure our nation so that you and I could have this conversation right now, because that's based on the foundations of what the country was founded on. So I'm not going to throw Thomas Jefferson out the window because he was flawed in that way. I mean, it was foul, but it's just what it is.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. Yeah, these guys were flawed individuals. They did some great things, like anybody. We can bring up any figure in history and say, did this great, was kind of jacked up here. You can bring up President Obama. You can bring up President Kennedy. Franklin Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln. You can always pick apart things like that.
I'm going to bring up somebody that's related to these two kids that we're talking about. The girlfriend, Deidre. This whole thing started between her and I. Christopher came in, in the middle of this. She was originally the one that was arguing this point. So a couple days ago, she was supposed to come on my channel the day Christopher was on there. Apparently, she had too much to drink the night before and was throwing up. So I decided, okay, well, that's fine. I'll let you come on. We can have a discussion, which you saw that. It turned into a complete freaking dumpster fire, and I kicked him off my channel.
Mm-hmm.
Deidre decides, I'm going to watch this video, let you know what I think, and I told her, I can't believe you're still supporting this guy after he called me the N-word. And her response was, well, according to Christopher, you earned it.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry. Excuse me? I earned it?
Can I speak about her for a minute?
Now hold on.
Go ahead.
I tell her, I'm done with this. If you don't have any evidence to show me to back up your baseless claim, we're done. And she sends me a paper from J.P. Rushton that was written in 1999. If you're not familiar with J.P. Rushton, he was a psychologist from Canada who had to immigrate to the United States so he could avoid hate speech laws in Canada.
Oh, God.
And his paper got him put on the SPLC website. And every single scientist that he quoted in that paper filed a lawsuit against J.P. Rushton for not only using their works without permission, but falsifying their works.
Mm.
And they won. And J.P. Rushton has forever been known since then to be the psychologist of white supremacy.
Wow.
And these two want to try and give me articles from somebody that I used to study while I was a white supremacist and push this pseudoscience, and then tell me, oh, it's not white supremacy pseudoscience. Yes, it is. I should know. I was a white supremacist.
Wow.
You utter freaking twat.
And see, that's the thing. Here's the thing. I deal with a similar situation when I deal with I'm sure you see me rant about the hotepery. I was a Black Hebrew Israelite for a while. Okay, and if I'm pretty well versed in religion and theology, and at that time when it came to the Hebrew Israelite thing, I was one pushing the line. And let me be clear, I wasn't one of those Hebrew Israelites in New York that yell at people on the street. Chicago Hebrew Israelites are a little different. We are, we debate people, but we treat people generally with respect, regardless of who they are. There are different sects of the Hebrew Israelites, and the ones in New York, we call them law keepers. They have their own agenda. Yeah, but in any case, after I was left being a Black Hebrew Israelite, when I come across them now and they regurgitate that stuff to me, I'm like, dude, not only are you misquoting, I did it much better than you. You're not. I used to run this line a whole lot harder than you. I pressed the line real hard. You lightweight, man. So it is kind of, it's ironic and kind of funny. And you're like, dude, you're not even running this line right. Let me help you. That's why I said, let me educate you. And people say, oh, you're being kind of, no, man, I'm being real. If you're going to run this, let me educate you on it, bring you up to speed so you can keep up with the conversation so that we can have a fair conversation. Otherwise, it's like, dude, I've been down the street before, so I can imagine how you're like, dude, I know this stuff, but it's funny. And I'm going to put this out here for all the scholars out there, whether you're formally trained or non-formally trained. Now, in fact, non-formally, anybody's going to know this, but for those who pretend they're scholars because they quote in one person, it doesn't work that way. That's not the methodology of trying to prove something. You get a
Yeah.
bunch of peer-reviewed articles from different people from around the world, from different disciplines, maybe from different social or philosophical positions, and you find a consensus, and that's how you get what we think may be true. That's it. So when people go to that one source, what was it? It was Thomas Aquinas, one of the church
Oh,
fathers.
jeez.
Hominem unus libri timeo, fear the person with one book. And this is a Christian telling you that people who swear by one source, kind of dangerous. You always want to have a holistic, well-rounded view of what you're talking about. Even like when I'm talking theology, I get into arguments with atheists all the time because when they come to me, they're coming to me like I'm some type of Ken Ham creationist. I'm like, dude, I don't believe that. Oh, yes, you do. I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm not the guy for you to have this debate with because one, I don't care. I'm like, if you don't believe in God, I don't care. Good for you.
Yeah.
I don't think you're a bad person because of it. It's your choice. But when they start talking about the Bible, I'm like, look, you don't want to talk about the Bible with me. Let's not do that. And they said, what do you mean? I said, look, man, my theology is systematic, meaning that it encompasses history and social anthropology. And the things I'm going to debate with you are not matters of faith. These are matters of historical record or matters of literary content or intention. Like there was one, I know you see me getting with you guys on Twitter sometimes because I see them because you follow them, I follow you. And one was talking to me about the book of Genesis. And they're like, yeah, you must believe this actually happened. I'm like, no, I don't believe it actually happened. I believe it's a true story. I just don't believe it actually happened. Well, how can it be a true story? I said, just like the tortoise and the hare is a true story. I don't think there was actually a tortoise and a hare racing, but it tells us something true about
Yeah.
us. And I said, the Bible is really a book about us. You learn about people. There were some very big differences between us and the people in the Bronze Age. And unfortunately, some very strong similarities, if you're being honest about it. So that's my thing. I say, you don't got to have my faith, but I'm not going to argue with you about it. I'm not going to, to me, it's one of those things. But I say all this to say that people have a habit of trying to pigeonhole people and tell you what you believe to try to make their argument as opposed to actually listening to you. Secondly, though, there's people that dedicate themselves to one source. That's a dangerous way to live
Yeah.
because, I mean, you have to get a well-rounded view of things to have a more panoramic view of what the world is. So, yeah, so because I kept hearing the dude couldn't come up with one source. I'm surprised she did, but she went for the racist one. But real quick about her.
Yeah. Now she has come up with quite a few articles,
Hmm.
and I'm happy she did. And I've informed her, I'm glad you found that article because I was looking for that because that article debunks your claim. Well,
Wow.
no, it doesn't. Yes, it does. If you'd like to have a discussion and I can show you where it debunks your article and actually explain to you what they're saying. I know what they're saying.
Hmm.
You're just being a science denier. You don't want to accept the fact that they're saying that black people are genetically more violent. But that's not what they're saying.
That's funny.
And
But oh, go ahead.
it's like, and I've asked these two, okay, so who have you talked to about this? Like, what makes you think you understand this? Because I'm not a scientist. I didn't go to school for genetics or biology, but I
Hmm.
had someone when I was in the white supremacy movement, I had someone present me with this same article that you're giving me and explain to me what it means because they did go to school and study genetics. That's their field. That's what they do. And they told me this proves that we're all the same.
Hmm.
Black people aren't more violent than white people. Black people don't have smaller brains than white people. Your skull size doesn't determine your IQ. None of that.
Can I point out one thing about the articles you're talking about? You do realize that people, and I'm sure you've heard this, people in certain, what I would call black supremacy organizations. I know I don't like using the term because it seems like there's an equal opposite. It isn't, because the black supremacists don't control a damn thing. All right. But the reality is that in some of these organizations, which I will not name, I will say, since I was a Hebrew Israelite, in some of the more racist Hebrew Israelite groups, all right, black Hebrew Israelite groups, they use the same arguments except they reverse it. They'll
Yeah.
use the same argument and reverse it about white people. White people are genetically more violent than anyone on the earth because of this, that, and the other thing. And it bothers me as a historian because one thing I've found in studying world history and studying the history of Europe, studying the history of West and North Africa and Eastern Africa, even studying the history of the Levant, studying the history of Asia, the Americas, people are pretty much the same, and people have been brutal up until the damn Renaissance and Enlightenment, and
Yeah.
even then we were brutal. It's just that's something about human nature, unfortunately. When resources are scarce, people tend to get weird. And then you always have those greedy, selfish dudes or ladies who decide they're going to take someone else's stuff. And that happens throughout the world. It's happened in Africa. It's happened in Europe. It happened in Asia. It still happens. So anybody who takes a very cursory look at world history, and if you want to
Yeah.
look at the different people groups like that, you see that this is a consistent theme. You got
And
bad.
you have your extremists that fight for whatever religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's not genetics. It really isn't. It's ideas. It's bad ideas.
Mm-hmm.
China. I use China as an example today. They're killing the Uyghurs simply over belief or
Mm-hmm.
lack thereof.
Right. And I agree with you. People think, I hear a lot of times arguments, people say that religious ideas cause all the wars. And I'm like, I say that's a real simplistic view of things
Yeah.
because ultimately all the wars are generally caused by one thing: someone's greedy. And they're going to use race, religion, nationality, ethnicity, um, beliefs. The Soviets had atheist beliefs. They weren't religious. They weren't, theologically religious. And they'll use whatever because a certain small group of people wants something that someone else has. Like the whole Crusades, people say it was a religious war. That was a land grab.
Yeah.
There's some people that wanted to go and take something, take the gold. They use religion as an excuse, and people use those things as an excuse. Even if you take Islamic fundamentalist terrorists, all right, there's still somebody behind it. I always found that funny, and I'm just going to share this with you. Vision in your mind Osama bin Laden in a caravan of SUVs, of black Yukons, driving through the desert, his air-conditioned Yukon. As he pulls up to the guy who's sitting on a rock, rolls down his window, and says with a straight face, "America is your enemy." And then rolls the window back up and keeps driving to his cave in his very nice and comfortable air conditioned Yukon. So I think that just kind of encapsulates the idea that it's people who want something. They want power, prestige, and they're going to use whatever means to push the line. And we have to stop focusing on the method, the tool that brings us to that, and get to the source. Who wins from this? Who benefits from this? Who is trying to benefit from this? And that answers every question. Once you think about, say, if you look at any problem in history, any war, anything really bad going on that we can stop, that we allow as people, if you allow it, if it's being allowed and it can be stopped, then that means somebody is benefiting from it. And the question is finding out who's benefiting. So
Yeah. And these two, I think the benefit they're hoping to get is attention. I honestly think that's all it is. They want attention.
mhm.
And somehow along the line, they found this revisionist white supremacist idea and decided, hey, nobody really likes this idea. We're going to push it.
The Candace Owens effect, huh?
Yep.
Speaking of Candace, let's go back to the sister.
Uh,
I was reading the sister stuff, and I was reading what she was putting on Twitter. I read as much of it as I could take, and I came to some conclusions. All right. Number one, I don't use the term, when people call black people sellouts or Uncle Toms or coons. I don't do that.
Yeah.
I say, because that number one shuts down the discussion. But what I can say is she seems to have a pathology of self hate, and it has nothing to do with her dating a white guy. It's one, that you're dating a white guy that you know is racist against the group of people you come from. Two, that you buy into every negative stereotype about your own group of people, all right, that you can find that are easily disproven, but you buy into them hook, line, and sinker. And to me, people do that for one or two reasons, or both. One, they really do have a self hate issue, and
Yeah.
two, they're looking to benefit from it financially, like Candace Owens does. You know, Candace Owens will say anything, and then now I think after really watching her, I think she has a self hate issue, but she's making a hell of a lot of money off that self hate issue. I think this girl might be trying to get to that level. Because if you're black and you're on the if you're black and you're a so-called conservative and you're a
Yeah.
radical right person, you start talking that yin yang, people are gonna push you up. The racist in that group will put your black face out there so you can say the things they can't get away with saying. So I mean, Alan West does it. That Sheriff Clark dude did it. Um,
Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't you the one that referred to her as a wannabe Candace Owens?
Absolutely.
Her response was, I feel honored to be compared to Candace Owens. She's a very successful black woman.
Yeah, she is. She's very successful in making money. At what cost, though, ultimately? But I
Yeah.
mean, that just goes to show, like I said, hopefully she hasn't. Some people drink the Kool-Aid and believe the Kool-Aid. Some people just sell the Kool-Aid. I don't know where she falls in between and selling it or drinking it.
I'm not sure. I can't get an honest answer at either one of them. So at this point, I'm not sure.
Well, I'm going to watch this show. I'm going to try to be patient and not have comments in the comment section and just look. Part of me wanted to invite them on, but I said that's going to be a very bad situation. You know, I think that'd be very bad because what is going to happen is at a certain point, I'm going to just start embarrassing them, and I'm going to do it. As you all see, my hero, Victor Von Doom, is going to go down like that. So I'm just going to watch. I'm going to leave that one alone. Some things are left best to the experts.
Yeah. Now, I'm also hopefully going to be setting up a separate debate with Deidre on Agree to Disagree with Conspiracy Cats and Creaky Blinder. This is strictly a debate channel, Agree to Disagree. If you've never watched it, go check that out, Richard. You probably like a lot of the debates on that channel.
Okay.
They have some really good stuff on there. And I've reached out to them and told them I want to debate this girl on this claim that she sent to me in my DM, so she can't say that's not my claim because I got it in black and white. You wrote it. You said this is your claim.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want to debate. So hopefully she'll agree to that and we'll get on this channel. Of course, like I said, Wednesday, I'm going to be on Atheist Pastors Hereticals channel.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Jay is still in the chat there. Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it still Atheist Pastor Hereticals or is it Chris Attlee Hereticals?
And tell him to put it in the chat so we can.
Yeah, I don't think he scheduled it yet, but I'll make sure I send you the link for the the live stream when we're getting ready. But I'm gonna crush this kid in this debate, and after I completely embarrass him, hopefully she'll decide that she doesn't want to take me on and maybe learn something and take a second look at this science that she's denying. If not, well, I guess we'll have to go ahead and, debate her too, and hopefully teach her something. Okay, so Jay said it's Hereticals / Atheist Pastor is Chris's new channel.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and find that channel and like it. There's so many interesting people on YouTube, and
Yeah,
I want to spend a special thanks out to Ethan and Cynthia from
yeah,
YFNA because I would never met you without them, and
yeah.
I met some very interesting people.
That's
I got the high school kid that I met. Dude's a Now he's a genius. We are different positions when it comes to our theist positions, but the kid is smart. I mean, I've met him. I was like, wow, because I like intelligence, even if I don't agree with their position. If you're intelligently putting your position out there, I ain't got to agree with it, but I'm gonna respect your intelligence. So I've met some very interesting and very smart people on the YFNA. And I thank Ethan and Cynthia for giving me an opportunity to be on, and they have me on sometimes with political discussions now. And it showed me how to, one, do these podcasts, but two, how to be patient with people and try not to, just come hard, because when you're on Facebook, and I grew up in the old chat, the old your message board environment, we just go in on each other. So if I'm going in on you on Twitter, you're not gonna win that one. I got too much practice on that one, man. So it's like, but I've learned to be a kinder, gentler American, as President Bush said, 1,000 beams of light.
Listen, I'm grumpy old dude for a reason. Like, I'll be kind until it's time to not be kind.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and Ethan, that's my baby face buddy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad he got us hooked up together. We've done
Yeah.
some good work together.
And he's a great producer, and he has a great channel, and I still follow the channel. And some of the people he has on, like I said, it's always interesting to see different people. And like I said, a lot of very intelligent people. And it's refreshing in this environment, in this political environment, where you got people
Yeah,
that are thoughtful, that are think about things, because, like you had talked about the geneticists that you talk to, I find it so irritating. And people say, "Oh, you're being elitist." I said, "No, there's things that people go to school for
yeah,
8 to 12 years to know, and it doesn't make them smarter than you. It just makes them more knowledgeable about that thing." And a geneticist, like, I'd be a fool. Yeah, I have a few degrees, but they're not in genetics. They're not in evolutionary biology. So how I look trying to definitively say this is my opinion and I studied it. Like, come on, man.
yeah,
And then going up against actual people who studied it. A friend of mine came up with the term. He says, "I can define some things that I don't understand." That we
yeah,
used physics to talk about. I can define string theory. I don't understand string theory. Define it. I can regurgitate something, but I can't debate Neil deGrasse Tyson on it. You know. So, it's unfortunately in our country, we come to a point where people do not respect when people have taken the time to actually have an expertise on something in order to have an opinion. We all have an opinions, but mine is not equal. Like, I have an opinion about white supremacy, right? Being a white supremacist, I have an opinion about that. I have some information. I've studied white supremacy. I've studied different organizations, neo-Nazi groups. But how I look trying to tell you, no, man, that's not how it really is. See, I studied. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? There's things that you get from being in it.
yeah.
So some people
And,
just can't handle that.
and listen, I get it all the time too. People telling me I've studied white supremacy for 10 years. It was like, I was in the movement for 20. Like, I don't give a shit what you read on some freaking pamphlet.
Wow. But I'm not going to keep you much longer. I know you did a show earlier today, and I know you're out
Yeah.
east, and you got your wife, and I got to get with my family. I appreciate you coming on. I want to have you on
Yeah.
again. I've been asked multiple times for us to do a show about prison and to
Okay.
do a show about gangs in prison, and how prison works. I have another friend. He had been to prison. He's now a motivational speaker, and I think we all three get together so you guys can talk from perspectives. You're East Coast prisons. He's Midwest, and I've traveled to a few different ones and seen some different things and talked to people from them. I think it'd be informative to people.
All
So
right.
they understand what really goes on. If we're going to ever talk about actually prison reform, let's talk about this is what it really is. This is what the politics of a prison is, so people understand, you know, how to make it better by understanding what it really works like. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll definitely hook that up.
All right. Other than that, I'm gonna see you on Wednesday. I'm gonna watch your show. I'm gonna be quiet. I'm be quiet. I'm just gonna sit there. I'm not gonna type a word. I'm just gonna sit there and listen to you because you handle it much better than I. Like I said, at a certain point when someone says something so ridiculous, I'm gonna say, okay, that's it. We're done talking. Let's talk about how stupid you are. And I'm just gonna go with that. But I appreciate you as always, Grumpy, for coming
Thank you.
on, man, and like I said, you're always so informative. A lot of people are excited about the show today. I talk to people at work. People are texting me, "Oh, you're gonna have him on again, man. He's great." So people like hearing you. But you were very. I appreciate you opening your heart and being real about what happened and how it affected you. You could have just brushed it off, or just, oh, it didn't affect me. But you were honest about how it affected you, and then it made you reflect on yourself, and
Yeah.
that just shows that you're a real man. Bottom line, that's
Yeah.
a real.
It definitely taught me more about myself than I realized.
And when he talks about, and I just want to mention this. This guy says that I was actually shocked that he said white men are cowards. And let me tell you what shocked me about that. I've learned one thing in life. It's all about where you're from. Don't matter. I understand there's this image that black guys are just, we're tough and we're all beating up everybody. And that's the thing that kind of leads to some of these incidents we see with police, this perception that, oh, we're just so tough, where a 12-year-old kid like Tamir Rice is getting treated like a real threat because of the idea of a black man being a beast, basically. And then white people, I think white people are victims of their own marketing. Let me say by this. The world looks at white people as the Brady Bunch, fathers knows best. Now I grew up in a town. We had, there was a lot of white people I grew up, and they weren't living fathers knows best. All right. I was like, they're getting, I'm like, I watch white people on TV. I go to their house, their mom's whooping their ass with a belt like I guess. Like, wait a minute. This is what happened on the Brady Bunch. Why is he not having the Mr. Brady talk with him? So, and I know a lot of real dudes, black, white, Asian, Latino, that are about the business. They ain't scared, and it has nothing to do with their ethnicity. It's everything to do about who they are, and I just found that so ignorant. I'm like, what white people is he living around? Maybe he's living in the fathers knows best world. Maybe he hasn't gone to places, where, in the South, or in, I don't know. Or I'm trying to figure out where, I'm like, where do you get that from? I guess he gets it from TV, I guess.
I don't know.
It is what it is. I mean, that's the idea that people have based on their, I guess, perception of reality as opposed to reality itself.
Well, it's either that or he's projecting his own personal feelings.
I got a feeling that's pretty much it. Because I guarantee you, I haven't met Grumpy in person, but I can guarantee you that if Grumpy was in person with that young man, I doubt he would have articulated it quite that way.
We'd have had a talk. I'll tell you right now, we'd have had a talk.
Yeah, because I was like, when you showed me the exchange, I'm like, this kid is he's selling tickets, but we have a lot of keyboard gangsters these days, that I bet you wouldn't say that. No, I'd actually say exactly what. I'd probably be a lot less nice about it in person, because the internet's forever. People want to screenshot your stuff, So I try to be careful. But in person, I'm gonna let you know exactly how I feel, So it is what it is, man. But thanks again, brother. Did you want to close out with anything? Anything else to add that you want to say?
Yeah, just if you haven't checked out my channel, I'm the Grumpy Old Dude. You can find me on YouTube at Grumpy Old Dude. I am at Grumpy Old Dude 8 on Twitter. You can follow me over there. Get updates whenever I'm posting new content. And I do have a show on my channel that I'm calling The Formers. It's not necessarily for former, extremists or white supremacists like myself. It is for anybody trying to form a better world for all. So if you or anybody is an activist in any field, whether it be drug and alcohol, mental health, racism, whatever, check me out at Grumpy Old Dude, and we can schedule a show to promote your activist work, any nonprofit organizations, anything like that.
Well, that's powerful, man. Well, I hope people take you up on it. And as always, those of you who are new to my channel, I got a lot of people coming on because you're on. So some of you, please like and subscribe to the Richard Graves group. You know, I'm not as grumpy most of the time.
But you are God approved.
Thank you. See, I'm approved. All right, man. So I will talk with you later, man. You know, God bless you and your family. I know you're an atheist, but you know what I mean by that. You know, I want you to be well.
I'm actually an agnostic.
I saw that update. Man,
Yeah.
did they take your card too? Man, you got too much stuff coming on. You find out that you're not white, and now you're finding out that I'm an agnostic. There's a lot of cards getting took from me, man.
I've changed some of my views, and I probably will be doing an update about that on my channel in the very near future. You know,
Wow.
I'm on a journey of sorts.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's life, man. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I one day I'll tell you about my journey as to how I became a Christian. And the only thing I'm going to say is, in my mind, you know, I was pretty militant. You know, like I was pretty militant. What I mean by that, I was X-Clan, Paris, KRS-One, Rakim, Fight the Power. You know, Black Hebrew Israelite. I If you would have told me I ever be a Christian, I would have laughed in your face at the time. Because as far as I was concerned, Christianity was responsible for all the racism in the world. It was oppressive to my people, and so that's the story I had to tell you one day. Just just sharing, man, because it's always interesting, But you know, someone asked me why I don't debate some of the atheists, and I'm like, why would I do that? And let me
Yeah.
explain why. I guess I just don't feel the need to prove that to somebody. And I guess because I don't operate on certain presuppositions. I don't think you have to be a theist to be a good person,
No.
to have a good heart, to be kind, to know how to treat people. So I guess I just not invested in trying to argue with somebody about that. Oh, you're an atheist. Okay, fine. Let's talk about the game. I don't care, and it's funny to me that the ones I see, they're constantly, trying to argue with theists. And I'm like, why waste your time? But I realize that you got some theists who are invested in that. And you got some atheists that are they're invested in this debate to the point where you can't talk to them. Like as soon as you start talking, they want to throw everything evangelical Christianity. I'm like, I don't believe that. What are you talking about? But so they set up their straw man, and I do realize that the theists do the same thing. They set up the straw man. You're atheist, you must believe this. And I was watching one show with a guy named Kenneth. I just subscribed to Kenneth's page. He's been on Ethan's show a few times. Very smart guy, very intelligent guy, and respect him a lot. And he did a 3-hour podcast where he's going over this pastor. And I was like, first of all, I'm like, what is this pastor talking about? He's talking about, these concepts about. I'm like, you are overthinking this, man. And dude's picking him apart because I'm like, dude, you're saying stuff that's just ridiculous for it's not even forwarding the gospel. I mean, as a minister Christian, as a Christian, you're supposed to be forwarding the gospel. It's not the whole debating with atheists. It's not forwarding the gospel, But again, I won't preach on that today. I'm gonna save that for a different show. I'm just always confused by these discussions. I'm like, why are you having this discussion? But I guess that's also a sign of maturity. I guess I had my religious debates in my early 20s and early 30s, and after a while, I say, you know what? I'm good. People are people. I don't care if you're theist or atheist, gay or straight, black or white, whatever. As long as you're a good person, you treat people kindly, I'm good with you. And then people
Pretty
say, well,
much.
aren't you trying to convert this person from this religion? If you're a Buddhist, a Hindu, a Taoist, if it makes you a better person, I'm all for it. I have my faith.
My buddy Jay in the chat said, come to Buddhism. They have cookies.
I always tell people, that's why I told people I can't become a Muslim, because I like bacon too much. I can't do it. Can't convert. It's like, it sounds good. I get extra wives. That sounds good. But the bacon, gotta have the bacon. Sorry.
Gotta have bacon.
Jesus lets me have bacon on my Whoppers. All right, man. Let me quit before I offend everybody and start getting hate mail. All right. So thanks again, Grumpy. I'm gonna have you
Thank
back
you, man.
on. And God bless you, man. Let me go ahead and get our little outro. I was so engaged in our conversation, man. And let me say this, people. I learned a lot talking to Grumpy. You know, I know there's those of you out there that says I think I know everything. I know I do not know everything. I'll be the first to say it. And I've learned a lot in our conversations. It's been very helpful. So in the book that I'm writing, that I'm trying to finish, but I hopefully will finish within the next few weeks. And you know, I'll send you a copy. But there's some things that we've talked about that give me some insight, which you actually haven't been a white supremacist. You know, there's things I thought when you were like, "Nah, man." I remember when we were talking about something. I said, "Well, it's about the Civil War." He said, "It ain't about Civil War. These dudes on something different, man.
Yeah.
This what they on right here." I'm like, "Damn," you know. But it was just again, you learn something from people who've actually done something, as opposed there's theory, but there's actual practical application. Sometimes you got to talk to people who've gone through some things to get a good picture of what the world is like. That being said, thank everyone for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Um, I'm gonna have Grumpy back on, so you should like and subscribe so you at least know that. But thank
Be
you all.
safe.
All right, everybody, be safe, and you know, hopefully we get back to as regular of a world as we can have, and you know, and hopefully the world gets better. All right, talk with you all soon. Peace.